The studio lights were bright as usual, the audience settling into place, and the cameras set up precisely. It seemed like a routine day on the Dr. Phil show. At least that's what everyone expected. Then a woman took a white envelope from her purse. And Dr. Phil, a man known for staying calm no matter the situation, suddenly stopped. His hand froze mid-gesture. His expression changed instantly, because whatever was inside that envelope would undermine a family's 40-year history in under a minute. What followed was something neither the studio nor viewers at home could have anticipated. Rewind 3 hours earlier. Sarah Mitchell, 42, arrived at the green room with her 68-year-old mother, Margaret. They had been invited to discuss family secrets that harm relationships, common territory for the show. Producers assumed it would be a typical segment about trust issues between a mother and daughter. They had no clue what Sarah had hidden in her handbag. "Mom has been lying to me my whole life," Sarah had told the pre-interview producer. "And I finally have proof." Margaret sat beside her, composed and almost confident. She agreed to appear because she believed she could manage whatever Sarah said. After all, she had controlled the narrative for 40 years. One more day of denial felt easy. But Sarah was finished with excuses. This time, she brought evidence. The show opened routinely. Dr. Phil walked out to applause, greeted the audience with his usual straightforward tone, and introduced the case. "Today we're talking about a mother and daughter whose relationship has been strained by long-kept secrets. Sarah says her mother has been lying to her for 40 years about something essential. Margaret says her daughter is being overly suspicious and ungrateful." They took their places on the familiar brown chairs. Dr. Phil leaned forward, his expression focused. "Sarah, explain what's happening." Sarah's voice shook slightly. "Dr. Phil, my whole life I was told John Mitchell was my father. He died in a car accident when I was 5. I barely remember him. But recently, I found letters in my mother's attic. Letters from a man named Robert Chin. They were love letters, all dated from the year before I was born." Margaret shifted in her seat. "Those letters don't mean anything. Robert was just a friend." "A friend," Sarah replied, her voice rising. "Mom, the letters describe an affair. They talk about how you loved him, how you planned to leave Dad." The audience reacted quietly. Dr. Phil raised his hand for calm. "Margaret, how do you respond?" "It was a difficult period in my marriage," Margaret said, measured and steady. "Yes, I had a friendship with Robert that became inappropriate. But I ended it. I chose my family. I chose John." Dr. Phil paused. The studio became completely quiet. He noticed something in Sarah's expression, something indicating the situation went further than anyone had said. "Sarah, there's more, isn't there?" Sarah reached into her purse. Then she pulled out the white envelope. The moment everything shifted. "Dr. Phil, 3 months ago, I took a DNA test, one of those ancestry tests, and the results," her voice weakened. "The results said I have 50% East Asian ancestry. My dad, John Mitchell, was Irish-American, fair skin, red hair. My mother is Swedish, blonde, blue-eyed." The audience gasped. Dr. Phil straightened, his attention sharpening. "I contacted the testing company," Sarah continued, tears falling. "They verified the results were correct. So I started searching, and I found Robert Chin. He's alive, Dr. Phil. He's 71 years old and still living in San Francisco. And I contacted him. Subscribe and leave a comment because the most important part of this story is still coming." Margaret's face turned pale. "Sarah, don't." "He agreed to take a paternity test," Sarah said, her voice steadier now. "And I have the results right here." She lifted the envelope. Dr. Phil stared at it, and for the first time in his 21 seasons on television, he looked genuinely unsettled. Because this wasn't simple conflict. This was a woman's entire identity on the line. "Stop the tape," Dr. Phil said quietly. The cameras kept recording, but the whole crew froze. This had never happened. Dr. Phil never paused a segment mid-show. He stood and walked toward Sarah, kneeling beside her so they were eye level. The cameras captured everything. None of this was planned. It was real. "Sarah," he said softly, "are you absolutely sure you want to open that envelope right here, right now, in front of millions of people?" Sarah nodded, openly crying. "I need to know, Dr. Phil. And I need her," she pointed at Margaret, "to finally stop lying." Dr. Phil looked at Margaret. The older woman was crying too, her confident exterior completely gone. Margaret, I need to ask you directly. Is John Mitchell Sarah's biological father? The silence lasted so long it felt endless. The audience was so quiet you could hear the studio lights. No, Margaret whispered at last. No, he's not. Off camera, Dr. Phil made a decision no producer expected. He stood and signaled to the booth. Stop everything. Clear the audience. This is going to be a private conversation. The audience was escorted out, a first in the show's history. The cameras kept filming, but now it was just Dr. Phil, Sarah, Margaret, and a minimal crew. Dr. Phil set 3 bottles of water on the table and sat down again. Margaret, he said, firm but not harsh, it's time. No more lies. No more secrets. Your daughter deserves the truth. Margaret broke down. I was so ashamed. John was such a good man. He loved me, and I betrayed him. When I learned I was pregnant, I prayed every day the baby would look like him. And when Sarah was born, she looked at her daughter. You had his eyes. Or at least I convinced myself you did. Your skin was a little darker, but I told everyone that came from my side, from my Italian grandmother. Did Dad know? Sarah asked quietly. Margaret shook her head. I don't think so. I never told him. And Robert? I told Robert the first ended the pregnancy. I lied to everyone. Dr. Phil picked up the envelope Sarah had placed on the armrest. Sarah, do you still want to know? Yes. He opened the envelope carefully, pulled out the paper, and read it to himself first. His jaw tightened. Then he looked at Sarah. According to this DNA test, there is a 99.97% probability that Robert Chin is your biological father. But what happened next wasn't what anyone in the room, or watching, expected. Sarah didn't shout. She didn't fall apart. She looked at her mother and asked softly, Why didn't you just tell me? Margaret reached for her hand. Because I was afraid. Afraid you'd hate me. Afraid I'd lose you. You were all I had left after John died. You didn't lose me because of the affair, Mom, Sarah said, pulling her hand away. You're losing me because you lied. For 40 years, I asked why I looked so different from our family photos. You made me feel crazy. Dr. Phil leaned forward. Sarah, I want you to understand something. What your mother did, lying, gaslighting, that was wrong. But you also need to know that secrets like this are like cancer. The longer they're kept, the harder it becomes to tell the truth. He turned to Margaret. And you need to understand that your shame doesn't give you the right to take your daughter's identity. She had a right to know her origins, her biological father. You took that from her. Margaret nodded, tears making her unable to speak. Then Dr. Phil did something that would define the moment. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card. Not his own, but for a family therapist specializing in adoption trauma and identity issues. Sarah, take this, he said, handing her the card. This is Dr. Jennifer Hartley. She's one of the best in the country at helping people navigate exactly what you're going through. I'll call her personally today to make sure she has room for you. He then pulled out a second card for Margaret. This is for you, a therapist who helps parents deal with guilt and shame. Because Margaret, until you address why you lied, you can't rebuild this relationship. He looked at both of them. Here's what I know. This family is broken, but broken doesn't mean destroyed. You have a choice. You can let this secret finish what it started, or you can both commit to honesty and healing. Sarah looked at the card in her hand, then at her mother. I want to meet him, Robert, my biological father. And I want you to be there when I do, she added. He thought I was never born. He spent 42 years believing you ended the pregnancy. Dr. Phil stood. I can help facilitate that meeting if you want. We can bring Robert here with proper counseling support so you can meet in a safe, structured environment. Both women nodded. The cameras stopped rolling, but the story wasn't over. 3 weeks later, a follow-up segment aired. Sarah had met Robert Chin. The meeting was emotional. Robert broke down crying, seeing his own features reflected in Sarah. He showed photo albums of his family in Taiwan, giving her a glimpse of a heritage she'd never known. Margaret apologized to Robert, admitting what she'd done. He forgave her, not because it was okay, but because holding on to anger would have prevented him from knowing his daughter. Sarah and Margaret were in therapy together. The relationship remained fragile, but was built on honesty. Dr. Phil concluded the follow-up alone on stage, speaking directly to the camera. People often ask me, after 21 seasons, does anything still surprise you? The answer is yes. I'm amazed by how strong people can be when they face the truth. Sarah could have let this destroy her. Instead, she's building a relationship with her biological father while trying to heal with her mother. That takes courage. He held up a small bracelet Sarah had given him after the taping. It had belonged to her adoptive father, John Mitchell. Sarah told me John was a good man who loved her. Now she knows Robert Chin is also a good man who never had the chance to love her. She doesn't have to choose. She can honor both. Dr. Phil walked toward the camera, serious. If you're keeping a secret that affects someone else, especially a child, understand this. The truth has a way of coming out. DNA tests, medical records, ancestry websites. We live in an age where secrets are harder to hide. When they surface accidentally, the damage is worse than if you'd told the truth from the start. Do the right thing. Have the hard conversation. It will be painful. There may be anger and hurt, but lies destroy relationships. Truth gives a chance to heal. The camera zoomed in on his face. To anyone who just discovered a truth that shakes your foundation, you'll be okay. It may not feel like it now, but you're stronger than you know. Reach out for help, talk to a therapist, grieve what you've lost, and allow yourself to feel anger, but don't let it define you. Your identity isn't just DNA. It's who you choose to become. The episode became one of the most watched in the show's history. Mental health organizations reported a 300% increase in calls about family secrets and identity issues. Ancestry testing companies added resources for those dealing with unexpected results. Therapists saw clients inspired by Sarah's story, seeking help for their own family secrets. 6 months later, Sarah posted a photo on social media, herself standing between Margaret and Robert, all three smiling cautiously but genuinely. The caption read, "Family is complicated. Truth is hard, but both are worth fighting for." Dr. Phil framed the white envelope from that day in his office, a reminder that sometimes the most powerful moments on television aren't scripted. They're moments where you simply show up as a human being for someone who's hurting. That day, he stopped being a TV host and became exactly what Sarah needed. Someone who saw her pain, acknowledged it, and said, "I see you. I believe you. I'll help you carry this." Years later, the impact of that episode continued. Dr. Phil received thousands of letters from viewers inspired to have their own difficult conversations. Adult children discovering they were donor-conceived, parents revealing adoption truths, families fractured by secrets who chose honesty. One letter stayed with him. A 67-year-old man who had kept a similar secret for 45 years wrote, "After watching Sarah's story, I finally told my son the truth about his biological father. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. But you showed me compassion and honesty can coexist. Thank you for giving me courage." Dr. Phil kept that letter in the same frame as the envelope, a reminder that television, when done right, isn't just entertainment. It's a mirror to help people see their own lives clearly and a catalyst to give them permission to change.